What's up, everybody? Welcome to Off the Ball Network. We're Super Bowl week. We're very excited to be bringing you some special content tonight. I got two of my favorite people with me, Mr. Jurgen Coney and Mo from the Up in Flames podcast. How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good, bro. Ready, it's Super Bowl week.
Right.
Last week of football, as exciting as it is, it's a little depressing, but.
Well, everybody knows, me from Breaking the Game. I'm usually a basketball guy. Jurgen's kind of a man of many hats, as well as Mo. You guys kind of do a little bit of everything. So this should be fun. We're talking about the big game, obviously. Just about every piece of content you see out there is breaking down this matchup, talking about this Super Bowl. So we wanted to do something a little different tonight. We're going to talk about some of our favorite Super Bowls of the past and just kind of, rehash some of the best big games of all time. So we're each going to give you two or three of our favorites. We're going to be on here for maybe about an hour tonight. So if one of you guys wants to kick it off first, Jurgen, you can go ahead and give us your number one or three, however you want to do it.
Copy.
Of your favorite Super Bowls. You can go ahead and go first.
Copy. So my first favorite Super Bowl that I look back at pretty fondly because, we all watch the Super Bowls from a very young age. But one of the ones that really sticks to me as I was growing up more in middle and high school that I got to experience was the Packers Steelers in Super Bowl 45. Looking back, that was, I feel, a somewhat underrated Super Bowl that for me really sticks. You had Big Ben making his third Super Bowl appearance in his career by, I think at that point it was his eighth or ninth season in the league. You have Rodgers taking the Packers to the Super Bowl for what ended up being the only time in his career, but was the first at the time. Just a few years after finally being the starter after Brett Favre leaving. So you have two quarterbacks who some different paths to get to that point. And then as the game went on, one thing I really love in the Super Bowls is scoring. Every single quarter in that Super Bowl involved at least somewhat of a score, particularly the fourth quarter when the game got much closer. The last four drives in the game, it was the Packers scoring, the Steelers scoring, the Packers kicking a field goal, and then their defense making one last stop to seal the win. I think the ending was very dramatic, which we're sports fans. We all love it when we get our dramatic endings. And just looking at the rosters, man, it was kind of a blast to the past, which even though it's only been a decade, some of the names on both sides, a very stacked Steelers receiving core with led by the veteran Hines Ward, but you had Mike Wallace, a young Emmanuel Sanders, a young Antonio Brown. You had the Packers core with Greg Jennings and Donald Driver and James Jones. And then each of those defenses had some very, very good players. You had Charles Woodson on the Packers, leading the Packers defense with guys like Clay Matthews and A.J. Hawk. And then that Steelers defensive back crew, which they have been trying ever since to recreate a high-caliber defensive backfield with Troy Polamalu, Ike Taylor, Ryan Clark. It was just a lot of star-studded names on that field. Maybe not all of them are Hall of Famers, but a lot of Pro Bowls and very well-respected NFL players headlined that game. And I just love looking back at that game. It's one of the few Super Bowls I've actually gone out the way to rewatch it a couple times. It was just really good.
Yeah, I'm not much of a Packers fan, but that was a heck of a game to watch for sure. It was a lot of fun. It was definitely really back and forth. Jordy Nelson got scoring started with a 29-yard catch from Aaron Rodgers, and then Nick Collins had the 37-yard interception return. And the Steelers didn't get on the board till the 11-minute mark of the second quarter, but obviously from there they turned it on and made a game of it, at least for sure. It came down to the final couple minutes, and some of those names that you said, Hines Ward touchdown catch, Greg Jennings had 2 touchdown catches, Mike Wallace, there's another one that you mentioned. So it was a heck of a game. Mo, what do you have to say about that one? Anything you want to add?
No, not really. I mean, Jerk hit it all from names to plays. It's I can't follow that one up, but that one was a great Super Bowl, definitely. That wasn't my favorite one with the Steelers in it, but that one was definitely
me either.
I mean, for the most part, we haven't had bad Super Bowls.
Right. Well, there's been a few. Jurg and I were looking at it, but yeah, that was boring.
Patriots,
and then
Rams, and the Denver getting blown out by Seattle.
That was the other one that was on my mind too.
That one was bad.
Awesome. Well, we'll let you go ahead and give us one of your favorites, Mo. Go right ahead.
Well, I'm going to rewind to 2 years earlier when Pittsburgh was in the Super Bowl against Arizona in Super Bowl 43 in 2009. That's my all-time favorite Super Bowl, and it's because of one man and one man only, and it's Santonio Holmes. You know, being a huge Buckeye fan, what he did on that last drive, he had 2 plays. Obviously, he had the catch, which, in my opinion, is, you know, the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. Some would argue Mario Manningham has a take in that with the Giants. David Tyree with the Giants. They have a say-so in that. But my thing is, you measure that catch, it was a game-winning touchdown with, I think, about 36 seconds left. So, but that was, you know, Santonio Holmes being a Buckeye. And that was another star-studded Super Bowl. Like, you had Kurt Warner, Larry Fitzgerald. Then you had Big Ben, obviously, with the Steelers. You had Santonio Holmes. That defense, we know what Pittsburgh defense was. James Harrison, Troy Polamalu, pretty much the same names as it was 2 years later with Ryan Clark and stuff as far as on that defense. But it was another one where Kurt Warner was looking for, would that have been his second? Did he win the Super Bowl?
Yep.
Yeah, he was looking for a second. The Steelers were at the top of the NFL, right along with the Patriots and the Colts. At that point in time, you had like those 3 teams that pretty much to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC, you had to run through one of those 3 teams with Big Ben, Peyton, and Tom Brady at quarterback at the time. But that sold the Santonio Holmes, I think it was like a 32-yard catch before that led to him having the game-winning catch and then him having the game-winning catch. Like, he was one of my favorite players when I was growing up at Ohio State. So that's why that's my favorite Super Bowl. On top of the fact it came down to the wire. It was a great game all around. But that him having that catch, and it could have been anybody else, and that probably wouldn't have turned out to be my favorite Super Bowl. But being able to watch that game, I think I was like 14 years old. So to watch that game and see Santonio Holmes, a guy I grew up watching at Ohio State and followed when he was in the NFL, to have that game-winning touchdown. Like, I'm a Cowboys fan, we all know, but I was rooting for the Steelers that day.
Yeah, for sure, man. Jurgen and I both were talking a lot about this one. We had this one kind of keyed up, ready to go too. So I'll turn it over to you, Jurgen. Anything you want to add?
No, like you said, I had to search out for other Super Bowls because I knew this one would be on the list because it was such a great back and forth game. Like, you think about, Mo mentions Santonio Holmes' play, which, the amazing overall game he had, winning the Super Bowl MVP. Rare is it that a skill position player gets to hoist up the MVP award, especially at that point. Big Ben, he didn't win the MVP in the first one, and we like the whole idea. Well, the NFL likes the idea of trying to reward the quarterback when they can, but Holmes was just on another level that day. And some of the other plays before it, like before that San Antonio Holmes touchdown catch, the Cardinals thought they had won that game with their own pretty good scoring drive. Like, just the beauty of it. They literally went punch for punch at the very end of the game in the last 2 real drives because the Cards getting the ball back so late, like, you knew they probably didn't have a chance. In both teams' legitimate last real drives of the game, they literally went haymaker for haymaker, and that's something you love to see out of a Super Bowl.
Definitely. Well, just look at this. At the 7:33 mark of the fourth quarter, the Cardinals scored. Larry Fitzgerald caught a touchdown pass to make it 20-14. Then at the 2:58 mark, they got a safety to make it 20-16. Then at the 2:37 mark, Larry Fitzgerald had a 64-yard touchdown catch. So in the course of less than 5 minutes, the face of the game completely changed. It went from looking like the Steelers had it completely in hand to all of a sudden, well, here comes Arizona. The Cardinals, just stole this win away from them. But not to be outdone, Big Ben marched them down the field in the last 2 minutes. The 2-minute drive was enough. And like you said, with 36 seconds left, Santonio Holmes had, to me as well, I think is probably the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. It's hard to top what David Tyree did. It's hard to top some other plays, but this was a game winner that just, the tiptoe catch that he made was just awesome. So,
and that throw by Big Ben was very underrated. Like, he doesn't get enough credit. Like, you look, and not only was it a perfect catch, but if he placed that ball anywhere else, half a second too late, half a second too early, it doesn't get there. It could have got picked. There were 3 Cardinals defenders right there. So he put it in the position where only Santonio Holmes could get it. And it was going to take an effort in a catch. It was going to take a lot of effort, what Santonio Holmes did to be able to catch that ball. So I think that's one of the more underrated plays. I know it's going to get his love because it defined a Super Bowl. But when you start talking about, like, you're giving a lot of credit for David Tyree, I think there was more skill in that play, and that's why I give it as the greatest catch in Super Bowl history, because I think there was nothing but skill behind that whole thing where Eli Moore threw it up, David Tyree jumped. He got lucky enough to hold it onto his helmet. Like, now, granted, they won the Super Bowl because of it, so I don't take credit from it. But when I'm evaluating the catch itself, I think it was just more of a skilled catch by Santonio Holmes as opposed to a lucky catch by David Tyree.
Yeah, definitely. And, you can almost just make the case that Eli even got lucky to get that throw off, just the way he got away from that sack. And, 99 times out of 100, Eli Manning goes down and takes a sack there. So that was a pretty lucky play. So we'll move on. I'll go ahead and give you guys my first choice. And it's probably not a super popular pick. I mean, it was a great Super Bowl, but I think a lot of people were pretty upset by the final outcome. And that was Super Bowl 51 when the Patriots came back from down 28-3 against the Atlanta Falcons. And I just want to kind of set the scene for how this went. So with 12 and a half minutes to go in the third quarter, it was 8.5 minutes to go in the third quarter. It was 28-3, so even worse. So from that point on, James White, how does he not win the MVP in this Super Bowl? 3 touchdowns. I mean, obviously Tom Brady, the GOAT, gets the Super Bowl for that one. But just look at some of these numbers. The New England Patriots ran 99 offensive plays in this game to the Atlanta Falcons 49. That's unreal. That's something I've hardly ever heard of. Tom Brady went 43 for 62, 466 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. I mean, obviously that's why he won MVP. But, James White had a heck of a game. He had six rushes for 29 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he had 14 catches for 110 yards and a score. Like, that's insane. That's a running back. Yeah. And, we know Tom Brady loves to spread the ball around, and he loves, using everybody on the field. So that's not super surprising. But just the way they came back, and I think a lot of the reason I love this one so much is a big part of it was I was at work. I was a bartender. I was at a sports bar watching this game, and the entire place was so happy that the Patriots were losing. Everybody. And I was just trying to get on people's nerves. So, being a little bit of a troll. So I'm just talking smack to everybody saying, it's not over yet. It's not over yet. I really did think it was over. I didn't think they'd come back and win. I was like, you just watch. The second half's going to be different. And, there they went. And it didn't take long for them to come back. Obviously, about 23 minutes of actual game time. They brought it a 25-point lead to tie it up. They take the ball in overtime and they march right down the field, get the third touchdown of the game for James White. So, like I said, I think a lot of people probably weren't super excited with the outcome of this game, but just the way they came back and looking at the stats now, like 99 plays on offense is just ridiculous. So they ran more than twice as many plays as the other team. So it just goes to show you that, no lead in the Super Bowl is safe, especially with Tom Brady. So to me, it's not my all-time favorite. It ended up at number 2 for me. Mo already talked about my favorite Super Bowl ever. So that Steelers-Cardinals game was awesome to me. But yeah. I went with this one. Ultimately, it was just crazy to watch. So what do you guys have to say about it? Anything?
I mean, also, I'm starting to think our list is probably dead the same because that was my number 2. And the reason why that was number 2, it was not only was it a great game, I really should hate it. I lost a lot of money that day. Oof. But I was out on deployment on an aircraft carrier watching the game. So it's just, I remember it's not to bring race into it, but all the black people were rooting for the Falcons. White people were rooting for the Patriots. So it was almost like a mini fun race war, let alone it was just bro, being gone, that's all we had was the Super Bowl. That was a day off for us. Basically, we got to watch it, and they had a big blow up screen. So it was that was one of the fun days while actually working and being gone. But yeah, that was I knew the game was over. 28-3, I just knew the game was over. I don't care. In my head at that point in time, I'm like, I don't care who you have on your team. If you don't have Jesus at quarterback or at safety or at running back, you're not winning the game. And then, lo and behold, here comes Tom Brady. Here comes the GOAT, who had something to say about that. The closest thing in football to Jesus has something to say about that. And you know what? Hey, you said you don't have Jesus, but you got Tom Brady. But, I mean, that game it turned out, you look at the final score and you'll be like, oh, my God, that was an amazing game. But if you're a Falcons fan, I feel like that's really where the Falcons like voodoo or whatever, their bad luck started because now it's becoming a trend every year.
Yeah.
They're giving up big leads that just are ridiculous. They did it this year to my Cowboys. So, my Cowboys were able to come back on a ridiculous.
Yeah, that was wild.
We shouldn't have won that game, and we won that game. So, I just look at it like that was like the series of unfortunate events that started for Atlanta. And then, obviously, that was another Super Bowl to solidify Tom Brady as the GOAT. Like, he wasn't widely considered as the GOAT up at that point. He was in the conversation, but it was like a head-to-head conversation with him and Joe Montana. But it's like after he did that, it started to translate over like to undisputed he's the GOAT. So I do give Tom Brady the credit. I never really liked him growing up, and it's hating because he was a winner. And my team never won, and he's always winning. So, But yeah, I got to give it. I feel like that was the defining moment for Tom Brady's career, where the GOAT debate started becoming undisputed.
Yeah, good point, man. Good point for sure. What do you guys? Anything to add, Jerg?
Just that game also featured in one of those scoring drives that New England needed. That's the thing that a lot of people forget. They had to play nothing but perfect football with the idea of what the media and players have spoken about New England, how it's the Patriot way and all that. They quite literally had to play the most perfect ending of the game. They had to get every touchdown in a certain amount of time and convert every single 2-point attempt they went for. And they did it every single drive. It almost went up to a point where in my mind, I remember watching it, and I was coaching a youth team at the time, and all my boys, literally all of them had picked the Falcons. All my coworkers picked the Falcons. My two best friends picked the Falcons. I was the only one that said, okay, I think the Patriots are taking this one. And as it's 28-3, as I'm thinking of everything, as I'm seeing some of my players on social media putting up the fact that, the game's over, da-da-da, as my friends are talking about it, in my mind, there was just something that said, like, man, this game ain't done yet. And boom, boom, boom. And I believe on one of the Patriots' defensive stands, they had a massive sack that knocked the Falcons out of field goal range. And then I believe they had an interception or a fumble go their way as well.
I think it was a fumble.
Yeah, it was a fumble, yep.
So all of that coming together for the Patriots. Like, a lot of people try to label them as cheaters or super lucky, but at the end of the day, man, like, they got it. And that game, highlighted by everything that we've spoken about, I think, to me personally, I flip between the Santonio Holmes catch and the Julian Edelman catch as my two greatest catches I've ever seen. Because my thing with the Julian Edelman catch is this: the presence of mind. And Mo, I know we both appreciate the idea of presence of mind because 2013 NBA Finals, Ray Allen stepping back to the three-point line, us as Heat fans. Yep. Julian Edelman's presence to get one of his hands under the football so it undisputedly could not touch the ground to secure it. That's one of the most, like, in the moment. A lot of people may not consider him a top tier receiver, but I don't think a lot of guys have that presence of mind to go up, hand under the ball, make sure they secure it. That play, that's just one of the standout plays. And James White-Austin, like you said, not just with his regular stats, the stats that don't technically count. I think he converted all the 2-pointers, if not all, except one. Like, he was a key cog in that. Like, he's such a threat in their 2-point conversion game plans. Like, he's actually been one of those guys. And at the end of the day, man, the Pats, that's the greatest comeback, I think, arguably in sports history.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
I forgot about that Edelman catch. That's what's crazy. I forgot about that Edelman catch.
Julian Edelman's been doing that for a long time.
And then David Tyree's, and because we know Santonio, I feel like Santonio Holmes' catch has to be in there right along with David Tyree. But then everybody talks about the Mario Manningham catch, and I think, like, somebody like me, I really forgot about the Julian Edelman catch. And it was, like Jerg said, it took a great football mind. It was more than just skill as a receiver. It took, like, a different type of dude to know to put his hand under the ball to make sure it was an undisputed catch. So it takes skill as a wide receiver, but then it takes another type of mind to make sure that you make that catch. Because a lot of guys would have tried to scoop and, like, tuck their body into it and convince them, that, okay, they probably can't see this on replay, but for him to clearly come up under it and, like, let the whole world know that I caught it, that's definitely up there and one of the greatest catches too. And then you look at it, had a lot to do with them winning the Super Bowl also. So, I mean, yeah, I forgot about that catch. Jerg bringing it up was like, yo, I really forgot about that catch.
I did too. I'm glad he said something about it. As soon as he said it, it clicked in my mind. I remember, I can picture it, like it was yesterday, but it's something I definitely forgot about too. And one of the big things that I'm just kind of looking at the random stats here on this game. The Falcons had 7 drives that took less than 2 minutes of game time. So 7 of their 11 drives, they didn't even have the ball for 2 minutes. And they scored 71 yards in a minute 53, 62 yards in a minute 49. They and their third touchdown they had a defensive touchdown too, but their third offensive touchdown was 85 yards in 4 minutes. So that one was a little bit better. But they just kind of ran right down the field and scored. And so that's part of the reason I'm sure that the Patriots had so many more offensive snaps. And
that's
the Patriots
one of the Super Bowls. That like with Kyle Shanahan, that's twice. That was one of 2. He was the offensive coordinator. I understand that in Atlanta, but that's twice under his play because when he went to San Francisco, he calls the plays. He's the head coach, but he calls the plays. So that's twice in his career as a coach. Well, like he folded under pressure and couldn't get the job done because let's be honest, Kansas City really shouldn't have won that Super Bowl last year. The way it was played until those last, and I know we can blame Jimmy G for overthrowing Emmanuel Sanders, but there were a lot of play calling issues late in the game.
Yes,
like we can pick one play, but we can also evaluate Shanahan and like you've been running the ball all year. Why did you try and start in the last drive where you could have secured it? Now you want to put it in Jimmy G's hands when you made it to the Super Bowl off of defense and running the ball. There goes a questionable whole drive right there. And then we pick apart Jimmy G's throw, but Kyle Shanahan should have just been running the ball. Like, if it got you to the Super Bowl, continue that way. And they started taking the ball out of Jimmy G, or putting the ball in Jimmy G's hands. And I didn't understand that. I'm like, so you have the advantage with the run game and your defense, and now you want to prove what Jimmy G can go tick for tack with Patrick Mahomes. He can't. Right. And that's where it changed. Mahomes started, he started developing himself in the second half. And so that's another reason why I'm like, that's twice on Kyle Shanahan. We talk about him being this great offensive mind and everything, but when the pressure is at his highest, he pretty much folds. So, and that was game really 1 of 2 in big moments in the Super Bowl, like the biggest of all stages, the brightest lights. He could have did it in the playoffs, but on the Super Bowl, you folded twice, and your outcome became your team lost twice. And I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough because we always give we hear these quarterback, Matt Stafford and Deshaun Watson possibly traded. Matt Stafford obviously got traded. But, oh, man, in that Kyle Shanahan offense, they're gonna be great. But then it's like they'll be great, but when it's time for crunch time, Shanahan decides when he's going to put it in whose hands and whatnot, and that's blown two Super Bowls.
And, I think it needs to be said, too, his dad kind of has a little bit of that reputation, too. His dad's kind of blown some big leads at times, too, and kind of been blamed for some weird play calling. And it almost makes me wonder if last year didn't have a little bit to do with this game, because I think in this game, everybody felt like the Falcons got scared and they started playing scared and they played not to lose and they weren't aggressive like they were in the first half. So I almost wonder if maybe last year he was like, well, I'm going to be more aggressive now. I'm going to go for it, and kind of went too far the other way. So there's something to think about there for sure. So that's a good point. One other thing I did.
You try to overcorrect your mistakes. Sometimes when you try to overcorrect your own mistakes, you just end up making more mistakes.
Right.
And Jimmy G's not Matt Ryan. You had the quarterback at the time. If I'm not mistaken, Matt Ryan won MVP that year.
Yes, he did.
So you had the quarterback at that time to play aggressive and go ahead and just pound for pound until there's no chance. Like if they would have played and been up 28-3 with 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter, now you can start running the ball. But you went away from the formula by playing scared in the first Super Bowl, and then you went away from the formula in the second Super Bowl that you coached in. Both times he went away from the formula. Their formula was passing the ball. In the first one in Atlanta, they had a high-powered offense. And it showed in the first 2.5 quarters. But then in the San Francisco game against Kansas City, they're a run team, and they were running the ball. They were up 20-10, and he goes away from that and allows Patrick Mahomes to get hot. And now you want to go tick for tack. Jimmy G versus Patrick Mahomes, who's the better guy? Patrick Mahomes tick for tack against anybody is probably going to beat anybody going tick for tack besides maybe Tom Brady this weekend. It's probably the only quarterback that could really go tick for tack for him, yard for yard, touchdown for touchdown, and probably beat him. So, like, it was just bad play calling. Like you said, you tried to overcorrect your mistakes, and you ended up making more mistakes. So, I mean, that's something. But Shanahan doesn't get beat up enough. They always talk about the one throw with Jimmy G to Sanders that he missed. But like, I don't think he should have ever made that throw. I think you should have continued to run the ball and use what got you there. Because what was it, an NFC Championship or the second round? He threw the ball, 9 times?
Yep.
Divisional round, yeah.
Yeah, divisional 9 times. And you won the game and you went on. Like, run the ball. That was your cup of tea on offense.
I don't think he had 20, pass attempts in the entire playoffs until the Super Bowl. I don't even think he was even over 20 in any of those games. I just want to shout out our boy Stu real quick. His favorite Super Bowl was the 06 Super Bowl. What up, Stu? We won't get too much into that one. That's my least favorite Super Bowl of all time. So, no, it was a good game. It was nice to see Peyton Manning get a win there, but it happened against my Bears, so it's a little touchy for me. The fumble that Jurg brought up, it was actually with 8 minutes to go in the game, and it was on Atlanta's own 25-yard line. So it was a huge turnover there. And then the very next drive, New England goes 91 yards on 10 plays in 2 minutes to tie the game. So just a couple of amazing moments in this game. Obviously, one of the more interesting Super Bowls to talk about for sure. But we'll go ahead and move on. Jurg, you can go ahead and give us your next one on your list.
So yeah, like you said, if we were technically going by what I had planned before, and we've already talked about all 3 of mine, because the Pats and Falcons one, obviously I think it's ingrained in many's minds, and both Steelers ones that we've mentioned, games that came down right to the wire, going blow for blow at the end. That I think that's the kind of Super Bowl we always hope to see, and are potentially going to get this Sunday. But if I have to, name another Super Bowl that, I really liked watching, it was Super Bowl 49, the one between the Patriots and the Seahawks, because, one thing in sports is that we always love to play up the idea of storylines. And I just loved the idea of going into that game. It was the Seahawks trying to become the first team since the New England Patriots to repeat as Super Bowl champions, which the Chiefs will have the opportunity to do this weekend. And funny enough, they were going up against the New England Patriots. And these were no longer the same Patriots who they won 3 times in 4 years the decade prior. They had made it to 2 Super Bowls. They had lost. They had a stretch of time where the defense wasn't always that strong, definitely not compared to those initial Super Bowl championship teams. And there was a lot of concerns. Brady, we all know, is the GOAT now for sure. But that was a Super Bowl where if things had gone the other way, if certain decisions had been made differently, Brady's resume would look a lot different now than what we view it. And the fact that the Patriots won that game, they end up with 28 points on the Legion of Boom, which I think was probably the most points scored in those 2 playoff runs on that Seahawks defense. Of course, it came from Brady. And just the idea of the former back-to-back guys stopping this young team who, context is everything. We would not have thought within 3 years of that Super Bowl, the Seahawks would have completely changed everything. We like to live in the moment. We would not have thought the Legion of Boom would have so quickly went away because guys getting injured, such as Cam Chancellor, guys leaving eventually like Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman. Like we wouldn't have imagined it. But it happened, and I think the seeds to that also begin in this game, particularly with a final decision made by the coaching staff that I'll let you guys go more into depth on. But I just love looking back at close games and seminal moments. I think that Super Bowl, I think it kind of reinvigorated Belichick and Brady. Of course, they would have definitely made Super Bowls after this one, I feel, but I think this gave them back that edge that they had after winning those first 3.
Yeah. I mean, that Super Bowl comes, like, realistically, we could talk about this. I don't like any games there's one play that we can, that is the one exception for a game. That comes down to one call. You have Marshawn Lynch. Everybody in the world knows Marshawn Lynch is about to run. That's the point. He's unstoppable. You're on the 2-yard line, I think? Mm-hmm. You have, what down? Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it not on first or second down when they threw the ball?
I believe it was second, yeah.
So it wasn't even like 3rd and goal, 4th and goal. Okay, second down. You were at the 2. You had 4 downs to get Marshawn Beast Mode Lynch into the end zone for 2 yards. That man could do that in his sleep. And you decide to try and throw the whole world off when the whole world knew you should run the ball, at least on second down and third down. And if you don't get in there, okay, I wouldn't question your fourth down call as much. But you throw the ball and it's a pick. Like, that's one of those, like, Pete Carroll should be. I don't like how we hold certain people to certain standards. And a lot of people still do crucify Pete Carroll as far as foot. That's one of the worst play calls in Super Bowl history. It's one of the worst play calls in sports history, period. Because when we look at major sports, football, baseball, and basketball, football is the only one that really comes down to a call based on what the coach says as far as a play ran or whatever. Game 7 in the NBA Finals, we know your best player's getting the ball. It's time for them to be clutch. Baseball's not really plays called. It just comes down. You could say the catcher made a bad pitch call, but whatever. But football is the one that comes down to play calling. And for you to not run Marshawn Lynch on second and goal at the 2, give him second and third down. And if he doesn't get in, I could understand the fourth down throw. But to throw a pick, like, that is the call of the game that ended up the Patriots. Like, Tom Brady should always send flowers to Pete Carroll every year. Like, he has 6. He should only have 5. He owes Pete Carroll, like, flowers and a Ferrari once a year at the end of the season for the simple fact that he has 6 Super Bowls, because that wasn't on. Brady played really good, against the Legion of Boom, like you said. But that solely falls on second and goal at the 2, and you throw the ball. Like, that's what that game came down to. So, I mean, it's one of those, like, that's unforgivable. Like, as a GM, I would have contemplated as an owner, Pete Carroll might have to get fired. Like, you cost me a Super Bowl. You cost me. When you win Super Bowls, you got players interested in your franchise. And then, like Jerk said, 3 years later, within 3 years, they blew it up. That whole team was gone. So that was what was crazy to me. But it's just, it comes down to the call.
Mm-hmm. We talked about a couple other Super Bowls earlier that, one play kind of really made or broke the game. But it was those instances where players making the most out of a play or making an incredible physical achievement on the field. This just came straight down to, this is the one time in my life I can really say that I think is about the only coaching call in a Super Bowl that I really remember being a big deal, one way or the other. I can't think of, maybe the Philly special might be the only other one. It was the opposite, thing. It ended up working out for them. But I can't remember really any other play call being as important one way or the other as that. And, it was just crazy. I saw something on the internet the other day. They said, it really wasn't that bad of a call because at that time in the NFL, about 67% of the time in a goal line situation, teams run that pass play. But to me, that even says, well, why do it then? Because then if you are going to throw the ball, they know that's what's coming. Like, he obviously jumped that route, knew that that's where he was going with that ball as soon as he saw that it was a pass. And so it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Our VP Jeff Hunt chiming in, ruined the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. We've got a lot of arguments for greatest catch here for sure. So we could go with that one possibly.
You know what's wild about him mentioning that? I'm sorry if you were going to get to it, Austin, but before that play call, Jermaine Kearse got the catch where the ball is spinning off, I think it's his foot, and he just picks it up. And funny enough, Malcolm Butler, we talk about the interception he made. Malcolm Butler was actually the guy that pushed Kearse out of bounds. Could you have imagined if Brady and Belichick had lost that game due to another receiver making an out-of-this-world catch? How angry would they have been? Like, really, It hit off his foot, we lose like that? Seriously? But Malcolm Butler, man, he saved the day more times than people thought.
Yes, he did.
And then with that, like, it's just the thing with analytics, right? Is a lot of coaches start to look. That's why I'm not so big on analytics. I don't hate it, but analytics can't be used for everything. And that the stat that Austin threw out there is that an analyst who's deep in the analytics showed that 67% of the time they throw the ball in those instances. But I guarantee you the teams that make up for that 67%, to throw an analytic stat that's not proven, but I guarantee you 75% of those teams didn't have Marshawn Lynch in the backfield. Like, there's a difference. Like, okay, we might make this play, but Marshawn Lynch was known for his toughness and how aggressive he ran the ball. So therefore, he was a strong guy. Getting 2 yards, he was built like a fullback with the speed of a running back and the elusiveness of a running back. But his size and strength, He was built like a fullback. So my thing is, even with that, like you have to factor, okay, yeah, it might be smarter to run a pass play because that's what becomes most successful. But Marshawn Lynch is the exception to a lot of analytics. Like, okay, yeah, let me look at my analytics guy. What does analytics say on second down? Yeah, we should throw the ball because 67% of the time it's successful with this play. Yeah, okay, well, you know what? I'll factor that, but I got Marshawn Lynch. So let me run Marshawn Lynch in. I got 2 downs, first, second, I got 3 downs. We could look to that at 4th and goal, but you can't tell me, even if he didn't get 2 yards, you can't tell me it would have been on like the inch-yard line by the time it was 4th and goal with Marshawn Lynch. Like, his will to run was going to be, he meant to say Mo, but thanks,
he did.
Okay.
He did.
But his will to run was going to get him those 2 yards. Whether it was on second down or third down, his will to run and how he ran the ball was going to get him. So that's where the analytics to me is like, Austin points that out, and there goes, like, proves a little bit of my point. You can't always look to analytics because analytics would have told you to make that call, and analytics is also tell you that's the worst call in Super Bowl history.
Very, very good point. You know, the moment in the game, the personnel, everything kind of dictates down there what you have to do, not what's worked in the past or what's worked for other teams or whatever it is. And it goes to show you that not all the time you can't look at stats and expect everything. And Jeff corrected himself. He said, yes, I meant Mo. We knew you did, Jeff. Thanks for chiming in. We appreciate you, brother. So, obviously Marshawn Lynch, I mean, does anybody remember that play they call the Beastquake? I mean, a year or two before that in the playoffs, the crowd went so nuts on that play that it registered on a Richter scale near the stadium, like an earthquake. Like, that's insane. You've got arguably the best, short yardage running back in the game at that time. And people maybe forget since it's been a few years, but Russell Wilson was really good, but Russell Wilson wasn't kind of the Russell Wilson we know now. He wasn't the star or the face of that offense. That offense was pretty much Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson making some great plays here and there. But their offense revolved around Marshawn Lynch at that time, at least in my eyes. And it was a crazy, crazy way to end a game. And it almost, at that time I was a little bit of a Tom Brady hater myself. So I just kind of felt like it was a cheap Super Bowl win for him in that situation, but a win's a win. A Super Bowl's a Super Bowl. So, props to them. And I would have, wondered about Pete Carroll's job at that point too, if I was the owner for sure. So, another great pick. Thank you, Jurg. Mo, do you have another one on your list, or have we talked about all yours?
No, I have another one, and it's Super Bowl 37. Tampa Bay Bucks versus Oakland Raiders. And the reason why that one resonates with me, I'm from the area. I'm from the Tampa Bay area. So, that was one of the first times in, I think, ever, let alone in a while, that the Bucks had played in a Super Bowl. And I remember that team. It's crazy that I'm not a Bucks fan based off, I was 7 years old. I was 7 years old at the time, about to turn 8 that year that they went to the Super Bowl. And I used to watch that team every Sunday. So I got to see every Bucks game that year and for years after that. So it is crazy that I'm not a Bucks fan. It's also crazy I'm not rooting for the Bucks in this Super Bowl. But I think with me being a Cowboys fan, growing up in that area, and all the Bucks fans and all the hate I got, but that Super Bowl, that defense was one of the best defenses of all time, period. It's not but it is one of. It has just as much of an argument as any other defense from the 2001 Ravens to the 85 Bears. There's a few defenses that are in that conversation.
The Broncos a few years ago.
The Broncos, the Patriots, they had one, I think, 2004? I think right after that was one of their defenses that was considered one of the greatest defenses ever. But that Bucs defense, as much, I know the whole roster at that point. But the only thing I don't like about that defense was, that year with the Bucs, was if you look at it, John Gruden left Oakland, goes to Tampa with Tony Dungy's roster, and beats his old team. So he gets a lot of the credit for that Super Bowl, but that was Tony Dungy's roster, but they didn't do enough. So they got rid of Tony Dungy. John Gruden comes in, doesn't make too many offseason moves, doesn't make acquisitions like that. It was pretty much Tony Dungy's team, and he wins the Super Bowl, and maybe that's John Gruden elevates, or maybe it was just he came at the right time because timing is everything. he just came at the right time that defense peaked. You know, they pretty much had that same defense the year before. The defensive line is one of the best D-lines I've ever seen with Booger McFarland, Simeon Rice, and Warren Sapp. And linebacker core was great. And I love the fact that Dexter Jackson was the one who won, Super Bowl MVP. Like Jerg said, typically we give quarterbacks the benefit of the doubt, and then we pick the guy, one of the least well-known players on that defense is the guy who won Super Bowl MVP. I think he had 2 picks in that game, if I'm not mistaken. But the one was like to seal any chance of Oakland coming back, even though they won convincingly. That pick 6 that he had to basically seal any chance of Oakland coming back weighed really well. I mean, they had arguably the greatest fullback of all time, and Mike Allstott. Like, that Bucs team was loaded. People don't realize that. And with growing up with
Warren
that,
Sapp.
like being able to watch that team, Warren Sapp, Simeon Rice, Derek Brooks, you know what I mean? Rondé Barber, John Lynch, like that defense was crazy. You had Mike Allstott, one of the toughest guys to ever run the football. Brad Johnson was here and there, like he had a couple good seasons, couple bad seasons. He's average quarterback, nothing great, nothing bad. Like, you wouldn't say he was a bad quarterback. He was just an average guy coming through the league, does what he needs to do, couple good years, couple bad years, and get out of there. But that team overall, I mean, Keenan Cardell, Keyshawn Johnson, Joe Jaravicious, like I said, you would think I'm a Bucs fan the way I knew that team, but it was just
there were a lot of big names.
Yeah, but it was like being 7, 8 years old. Threw a Super Bowl party that year. We hosted the Super Bowl party that year.
So did my parents.
Yeah, it was just like, it was one of those like, bro, that's going to always resonate with me. That's really one of the first. I remember watching the Patriots and Rams play, I think, a couple years prior to that. But that's one of the first ones where I can remember everybody on the field. I remember watching that game. I remember how crazy it got when Dexter Jackson see the game with that pick 6. Like, that was one of the first Super Bowls where I really was able to watch it and just remember the house going crazy. So that's why that one sits so hard with me. And it was, the hometown team won. That was before I really developed a hate for the Bucs growing up around Bucs fans. But at that time, it's like I loved the Bucs even when I loved the Cowboys. Just because I was a kid and all you got was Bucs gear. Like, I had a Rondé Barber jersey and everything. But I think that Super Bowl was great because it's one of those, for such a most losing franchise, or one of the most losing franchises, that was the highlight of their franchise as a whole.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I think kind of gets lost too in, just to time, when you were talking about Gruden getting a lot of credit for that Super Bowl, not only did he have Tony Dungy's roster, but everybody says that Bill Callahan never even changed a single bit of the the words they used to call plays. They knew the plays that they were calling on the field because he didn't change any of the terminology. So Gruden had a little bit of an extra advantage there too. I always liked that one too. I have kind of the same memories you do, Mo. Just having a Super Bowl party. It was one of the only years my parents threw a Super Bowl party at our house. We had a bunch of friends over, and I think by about the third quarter, all my friends and I were playing like Nintendo instead of watching the game because it was just a blowout. Yeah. But it was an incredibly star-studded defense for sure. Jerg, I know you have to get going. You got a big prior engagement tonight. Good luck with that. That's pretty awesome. Before you head out real quick though, I want your pick for the Super Bowl this week. Who you got?
Oh, okay, that's true. Yeah, I haven't made it publicly on Off the Ball Network. I'm running with the Chiefs. I'm sticking with what I said before. I'm a man of my word, and I'm not going away from it. I legitimately said after the Dodgers finished, they were the last Super Bowl. The last champions crowned in 2020. I legitimately looked at all the champs in 2020. I said, you know what? I think all 4 champions have legitimate shots at repeating in every sport. I felt the Chiefs had it. The Lakers, I think, have it. The Dodgers and the Tampa Bay Lightning in hockey. And I'm just going to run with the Chiefs. I've stuck to my guns on that the entire year. I was never scared at any point in the regular season with all these close games they were having. Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense, they've literally developed a switch. They I have said this several times. They have literally developed a switch for themselves where they just flick it and they take it from what is already, you'd assume, the best offense in the league to the best offense you may ever get to see in your lifetime. Just with the talent that Mahomes is, the speed demon that Tyreek Hill is, and just the utter beast that Travis Kelce is. Fun fact I actually saw today: Kelce is the same age as Gronk, separated by a few months.
I saw that too.
That's
wild. Crazy, isn't it?
That's wild.
One dude's in the prime of his career, and the other one just came out of retirement.
Yeah. So I'm rocking with the Chiefs. If I had to give a score, I still think it'll be high scoring because Tampa's got some weapons and that defense is pretty good. I'm gonna give it like a 34-27 type score. Okay. But I do have the Chiefs repeating just because, like I said, I'm a man of my word.
Very nice, very nice. Well, thank you for joining us, Jerg. We'll let you get out of here. I know you're a busy man. We appreciate you being on, man. Have a good one.
Thank you, fellas. Always love getting on here with you guys. Take care.
For sure. All right, Mo, we'll let you go ahead and give us your thoughts on this game this Sunday, too, before we head out.
I'm going with the Chiefs. Like I said, I've developed a hatred for the Bucs. And everybody back home will crucify me for that, but I'm going with the Chiefs. But I think I'm with Jerg. Score prediction a little bit different. I'm going Chiefs 38-34. I think it'll be a little bit like really high-end scoring.
Me too.
And I look at the matchup with Brady and Mahomes, 2 years ago in the AFC Championship. Where is a factor that you don't think it could go that same way? Is those were, the Chiefs had a decent defense. Patriots had one of the best defenses in the NFL, if not the best defense in the NFL. Gave up 31 points. I know the Bucs defense is coming in hot, but this is the Super Bowl, and these are two high octane offenses. And that's where I'm like, you look at, Brady put up 38 points with not even half the weapons that he has now.
Right.
And Mike Evans, Godwin. I know Godwin's getting crucified for dropping a lot of balls, but
big
players come in big moments, and I think he's going to have a great game. Antonio Brown, then you look at his slate of tight ends he has to throw the ball to. I don't think his duo of running back is that great, but it suffices, and then they bring Keyshawn Vaughn in every once in a while. I think he's more the pass-catching back. But you just look at all the weapons they surround him with, and, I want to give flowers before I get into the Chiefs to Tristan Wirfs, the rookie offensive lineman for the Bucs. I know we give credit. I know it'll be Justin Herbert as the offensive rookie of the year or Justin Jefferson. I know that's where we'll go. But the dominance that he had as an offensive lineman as his rookie year in protecting Tom Brady has a lot to do with their success offensively. He's not the only lineman, but for him to be a rookie, come in and be a contributable starter, almost an all-star, a Pro Bowl starter, as a rookie, I don't think he gets a lot of credit. We don't talk about offensive linemen. If he was sacking the quarterback, we'd give him a lot of credit, but we don't talk about the guy that protects the quarterback enough. So I think Tristan Wirfs, he was one of the best draft picks at the value that they got him at 14 and what he gave them this year. He's been one of the most productive draft picks this year, period. No matter what round, no matter what team. You have Herbert, you have Jefferson, you would have had Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow was on slate to put up big numbers in a losing season, which is fine. Nobody expected him to win. But I think Tristan Wirfs is right in that category as far as what he did on the offensive line. So I do want to give him big credit, but I got to go with the Chiefs. It's the Chiefs. They're starting to become the new Patriots. You would always, you hate to pick against the Patriots. You'd be like, why? It's the Patriots. It's Tom Brady. I think Patrick Mahomes is becoming that guy. I think right here we have GOAT. And then we have, to me, the only guy that has a chance of catching Tom Brady. And I don't know if he does, but as of any guy in the NFL right now or looking at college in the foreseeable future, Patrick Mahomes is the only guy I think that could catch Tom Brady, has a chance. He already, especially with how he started. 3 years in, he has an MVP and 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win, hopefully 2. But that's in his first 3 years of starting. He made it to the AFC Championship his first year of starting, second year in the league. So his projection would say he could outdo Tom Brady in whole accolades, but I can't hold him to that high standard. Tom Brady, 10 Super Bowl appearances, 14 conference championships. If that's the standard, I don't know if Mahomes will ever catch him. But I think with him I think he's more of a talented quarterback than Tom Brady was at that age and probably ever will be. But Brady's IQ and his leadership was what made him great. And then his accolades, that's what makes him the GOAT. Because I don't think you take away the accolades and we just measure quarterbacks talent for talent. I don't even know if Tom Brady is one of the top 10 most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. Like there's a, but accolades, there's a difference between who's better and who's greater. And that's what Tom Brady falls in. When you measure greatness, all those accolades, the 3 MVPs, the 10 Super Bowl appearances, 6 Super Bowl wins, 14 conference championships, like that's what makes him the GOAT. But I think we're seeing the new era, and I think this is where the torch gets passed, whether it's willingly or not. Obviously, Tom Brady would rather win the game. But I think if Mahomes wins, it's kind of the passing of the torch from seeing who's been the best quarterback for the past 2 decades to who's going to continue to be the best quarterback for the next 2 decades. So I think that's what we'll see in this game. And if it's a high-scoring game, Patrick Mahomes will win Super Bowl MVP because obviously if they put up a lot of points, they put up a lot of passing yards, a lot of passing touchdowns. So, but I got to give it to the Chiefs.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think we're going to see a high-scoring game, and I don't think it's going to be because of the running games, to say the least. I don't think we're going to have a repeat of the Rams-Patriots Super Bowl from a few years ago where that looked like it was going to be, at least on paper, should have been a more higher-scoring game than it was. But I think this is one where, if you like offense, definitely tune in to watch this. Arguably the greatest quarterback of all time versus the guy who's obviously the man right now and has been for a couple of years. I'm going with the Chiefs too. We'll just make it a clean sweep for the Chiefs. Hopefully we're not all wrong. I think I'd get kicked out of my house tonight if I picked against the Chiefs. So last year was fun, to say the least. When they were down that whole game, it was interesting to watch that game in my house. But when they came back and won, it was awesome. I just think, I had 38-35, somewhere around there was what I was thinking too. So we're kind of right on the same page there. And, though I told my wife a week ago, I said this before, the only quarterback I think that scares me as a Chief, as someone who's rooting for the Chiefs, is Tom Brady, because I don't know that there's a way to shut him down. I don't think there is, just with the knowledge that he has, the weapons that they have, just his ability to, he throws two picks in the game last week and they still kind of rolled to a win. And, Patrick Mahomes tore apart the Bills, and the Bills were never really even in that game. And the Bills gave them trouble the first time they played them this year. And I think it was Couch Coach who said it on See You Sunday, or maybe his show one time when I was watching earlier this year. The Chiefs do a lot of things that would cost most teams games. A lot of times they make a lot of cardinal sins, so to speak, and they still lost one game all year. And
until they lost their second game last week of the season, pulling all their starters. So I don't really. And that's another thing, like you brought up with Brady. My thing that I have to give Brady credit for is this, outside of Antonio Brown and Gronk, and I know we could go to the draft like Wirfs and Winfield. This was the roster that Jameis Winston had last year, and everybody, like, I think the Bucs had a playoff roster, not Super Bowl, but a playoff roster. You cut Jameis Winston's interceptions at half last year. But the difference between, they would have went to the playoffs and they probably wouldn't even thought about bringing Tom Brady. You cut Jameis Winston's interceptions at half, and they probably don't even go for Tom. They don't go for Tom Brady. But the difference is what Brady did to all those players is he changed their whole mentality. You're not here to just be a superstar and play football and get your money. When you play with a guy like Tom Brady, you have a winning mentality week in and week out. And it proved, guys with tears full of joy, and Tom Brady basically, what the F are y'all crying about? After they won the NFC Championship game, they're going to the Super Bowl. Guys had tears and just happy and celebrating. He's like, what the F are y'all doing? We still got a Super Bowl to win. That's the type of mentality that he brings. And all those guys, I just look at the progression of certain guys. Like, I look at Devin White, and all the Bucs fans back home, they can say what they want, but I see y'all on my timeline every Sunday. They were ready to say, they deemed Devin White the worst draft pick they could have ever picked. Like, oh man, that's terrible. A lot of people didn't like that they grabbed Tristan Wirfs in the first round this year because, like, offensive line isn't a sexy pick. No matter how much you need offensive line help, it's not a sexy pick. Nobody knows the O-lineman. We don't give them credit. Like, we get the receiver. We want the best receiver, the running back. Bucs fans probably would have rather had CeeDee Lamb. And I'm going to be honest, I would have rather had CeeDee Lamb. But you needed O-line help, and you brought in Tom Brady, so you knew that you needed a guy to protect them. But it's the winning mentality for me that Tom Brady brings. And, like, he elevates, like Devin White with that mentality, elevates his game and could be going into next year referred to as the best linebacker in football. It's very possible. With some really good linebackers, like Devin White could be the best. He's definitely going to be a top 5 linebacker going into next year. And he would have been an afterthought on your linebacker position rankings. You'd have probably put him in the 15, 20 at position if you were to do it coming into the season. Mike Evans obviously continues. He's a 1,000-yard receiver guaranteed every year at this point. But
Evans is a beast.
Yeah, he turned Mike Evans into like that superstar. Like he was able to put Mike Evans on the map. Grunt come back. You got Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate may have a lot of trade value coming into like next year. Like a team who's missing a tight end, they might look at a guy like Cameron Brate, and it's not that he's not that talented. He is, but you elevate your game when you come with Tom Brady on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And another thing I think Tom Brady, he elevates coaching. Bruce Arians had to learn that my way or the highway isn't going to work because I got the GOAT here. Like you have to lean more towards what is Tom Brady comfortable with? Because if you would have went with that gunslinging stuff all year, that didn't fit his game. So he makes you elevate everywhere from coaching to defense and just your mentality week in and week out. You're not going out there for yourself. We're a team. You know, nobody's bigger than the team. Tom Brady's always been that kind of guy, though. Like, no matter who he has on his team, nobody's bigger than the team. And that's why a lot of these stars that thought they could go to the Patriots and still be successful because they thought it was as simple as, you give me Tom Brady, I'm going for 1,500 yards. But you've seen Chad Johnson not be successful. Only guy you've seen actually do that was Randy Moss, and he bought all in the Patriots way, and they broke records together. But that's my thing is that's why a lot of stars don't last there because stars are me, get my face out there, get paid, and if we win, cool. But even if we lose and I'm the star, who cares? I'm going to get my money regardless. And that's what Tom Brady, nobody, including himself, is bigger than the team. And, you know, after they won the NFC Championship, he put, man, can we talk? Don't talk to me. Can we talk to the other guys? He goes, Devin White played great. Let's talk to my O-line for blocking for me. Let's talk to Mike Evans for that touchdown catch. Like, a leader like that you don't find that anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Tom Brady's probably the greatest leader in sports. Just the way he handles himself, he does things. He's not in the media getting in trouble, but he just brings a different mentality, and he brought that to the Bucs. And here they are in the Super Bowl. I didn't think it would be impossible. Like, I'm not surprised because that's just what Brady would do to a franchise. We just weren't sure whether it was Brady or Belichick or whether Brady was only successful because that's the mentality in New England. But I'm just convinced that's Tom Brady's mentality is I'm not a star. In his eyes, he's not a star. He gets to know the last player on the bench, the practice squad. Like, in his eyes, he's not a superstar. He's just a guy who goes out there and does his job week in and week out.
Yes, he is. And when, to your point, one of the stories I loved hearing and that I hear all the time is every year in training camp, you know, Tom Brady comes in, goes to the rookies, the new guys, goes up and shakes their hand and says, "Hi, I'm Tom. I play quarterback." Like they don't know who he is, but that's just the type of guy that he is. And he understands that, you know, it's not all about him. And it is, football is definitely the ultimate team game for sure in that aspect. And to your point about just the mentality and everything that's so different, it's kind of like how I feel like, you know, LeBron James is in the NBA. If you have that guy on your team, just think about the confidence that gives you. Just without him even doing anything on the field, without him even seeing him, it's just seeing him on wearing the same jersey as you. It's like, okay, you know, we got this. We're going to be all right.
And the expectation is greatness. Like, it's Super Bowl or bust in Tom Brady's mind. It's finals. It's really win a championship or bust for both of them. But, like, we get to the Super Bowl as the season was a failure and we got to get to work right after. LeBron James, we either get to the finals or this whole season was a failure. Win or lose, we got to get there. That's just the expectation I have for myself. But both of them, like you said, they're great leaders because they bring that out of you in a respectful way. It's not like how Kobe was. Kobe was a champion. You know, rest in peace, Kobe. But it was like you either have my mentality, you have my work ethic, or you don't at all. And like LeBron just embraces everybody, gets to know everybody. Brady's the same way. Like, so it is, those are two of the greatest, you know, players we've ever seen, regardless of who your GOAT is. Those are two of the greatest we've ever seen play at their respective sport. But those are probably the greatest leaders at their respective sport, just for that aspect. When they come on the team, the expectation when people see them in that jersey is just, man, I have to be great. The greatness is here. Tom Brady is the GOAT. He's here. We have to be great. He expects nothing less from us day in, day out. Oh, LeBron came to L.A., you know, and that's why it blew up and they had to go get Anthony Davis because those guys kind of failed the expectations. I know he got hurt. There's a lot of factors in that first season, but it was a high expectation for a really young team that didn't have that kind of confidence yet. Where Brady came, and you had established guys. You had, Mike Evans, who feels like he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. That's good. That's confidence. Chris Godwin, who had made a name for himself the year before. Then you bring AB in, who's just looking for a second chance and knows what he could bring and loves Tom Brady. So he was willing to be quiet, put all the BS to the side, and that shows the leadership and respect for Tom Brady, because I don't think Antonio Brown would have been this quiet if anybody else was his quarterback. But the respect he had for Tom Brady, I'm sure Tom, hey, man, I want this to be a Super Bowl for us together. Let's do the unthinkable together. And out of respect for him, he's like, you know what, I'm going to change my ways. So his leadership is on and off the field. So that's why I got to give Brady his big credit, is just what he brings to a team. Or when a player, that's why it is the Patriot way. When players go there, you adapt to that winning mentality, because it's Super Bowl or bust over here. That's what it is for the Patriots. And he brought that mentality. Look, I'm Tom Brady. I've played in 9 Super Bowls. I got 6 championships. It's Super Bowl or bust in my eyes. And then he looks at the talent. He's like, we're too talented not to win a championship. In his eyes, they're the most talented team in the football in the NFL. And they were close to it. Offensively, they were arguably just as good as anybody else. We could go to the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs, but you still, with your argument of Godwin, Mike Evans, Gronk, Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, Fournette ended up coming, Ronald Jones, they have an argument for they're just as good as anybody when it comes to offense. So he knows he real recognizes real, and that's what Brady does. But at the same time, it's just his mentality carries over, and it with that kind of leadership, it folds off to other players, and they fed off of it. And I think more so than anybody's individual performance, that mentality that everybody took on when Brady came is the reason why they're in the Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, those are all great points. We've talked about a lot of really, really great games here today, Mo. This has been a lot of fun. Let's hope this one's on our list of best Super Bowls ever next year, right?
Yep.
It very well could be.
That's what I'm expecting. I told my dad it's going to be an instant classic.
Me too.
I have a feeling it's going to come down to this game was an instant classic. We want to wake up the next morning and watch the same thing. So that's my expectation for it. I hope come next year, this is, the Super Bowl we just watched last year is probably the best Super Bowl I ever watched. So that's what
I hope so too. Ultimately, for my safety and for my wife's happiness, I do hope the Chiefs pull it out. But I hope it's a great game nonetheless. Yeah. Well, Mo, I think we're about done. We've kind of covered everything I had set up. Why don't you just go ahead and tell everybody where they can find your great work?
Yep. So y'all can follow Up in Flames Pod on Twitter and Instagram. To follow my personal accounts, Mo_Cheese15. I promise every time I say that's a story for a later date. I'm going to get into it eventually where that comes from. But, go follow Off the Ball Network, OTB_network on Twitter, offtheballnetwork.com. Check out everybody's articles. Austin has been a big person in writing articles for the network. Obviously, we know what he does with Breaking the Game with Steven, but he writes a lot of great articles, and I insist everybody to check it out now. And the reason I say that, we got a lot of stuff where there's going to be a lot of written content coming up with draft evaluations. I know we're going to dive deep as a network in the NFL draft. That's something I'm looking forward to. So definitely check it out now and notice the progress that you're going to see over these next few months and even over throughout 2021. But yeah, and also I love getting with you, bro. This is the second show we've really done together. It's always a good time, good conversation. So I appreciate you for having me on during Super Bowl week.
Yeah, for sure, man. I appreciate you coming on. I use all the help I can get on this kind of stuff. It's always fun, picking your brain. You make a lot of great points. You're a talented dude for sure. Just like everybody on our network. Like Mo said, Off the Ball Network, we've got everything you'd want, and then some probably. We've got a lot of great guys. Jerg, who joined us earlier, he's our hockey guy, but he does a lot more than that too. I'll always love chopping it up with you guys. As Mo said, you can find me Breaking the Game at BTG NBA Pod. I do that with Stephen Gillespie. He's another one of the MVPs of our network for sure. Austin Car10 at Austin Car10 on Twitter if you want to follow me there. Check us out at offtheballnetwork.com. But that does it for our Greatest Big Games Ever show. For Mo, for Jerg, I'm Austin. You guys have a good one. Thanks for watching.